Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, Kat Voleur returns to the show to talk about Final Destination Bloodlines. Kat Voleur is a horror author with such books as Revenge Arc, My Apologies to Tanya Grace, and her upcoming nonfiction debut, Queer Tastes. She is also the co-host of the Nick F. and Woo Cage Cast, Willem Dafoe. Welcome back to the show, Kat.
Thank you.
Well, so that begs the question, since the last time I talked to you, it was just the Nick F. and Woo Cage Cast, but now it's also got that added bit of Willem Dafoe. I'm assuming you've run out of Nick Cage movies.
Well, yeah. Um, The Carpenter's Son just hit video on demand. But
Oh,
it
okay.
was our first week of Willem Dafoe, so it felt weird to like immediately cover a Nick Cage movie. But
Right, right.
when it hits a streaming platform instead of just video on demand, we do have one more kind of in the chamber
There you
now.
go.
But
For now,
for
and then he'll
now,
probably he'll probably make a few more, and then you can pepper those in when you need to.
yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, one crazy actor to the next. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. It
So.
just no one else was pitched. Um
Just straight on to Willem Dafoe. You were just like, you know what? Who else is a crazy enough actor? Willem Dafoe.
Willem
And
Dafoe.
yeah. And I mean, it's not wrong.
No.
So yeah, no, it's a good choice. Good choice.
Thank you.
All right, but you are here today to talk about the final or the most recent Final Destination, which is called Bloodlines, which for me, was actually like this really fun. Like, it wasn't really like, I mean, this is 14 years after the last one.
Yeah.
So it had been a while. It is so weird though, too, because you don't like, I didn't realize it was that long. It's just maybe a symptom of me getting old. That 14 years ago, I mean, I'm 51 now. I was 37 then. So I was an adult then. I've been an adult the entire time the franchise has been around. So I guess maybe I just didn't realize that the march of time goes quick. But um, but yeah, is this one was a lot of fun for me. I think I hold this one up as one of the best of the franchise. Um, but I want to hear your opinion of it. What did you think of it?
So I have a lot of love for Final Destination Bloodlines. I'm
Okay.
a big Final Destination fan, so I will say there's like obviously there's the one that I don't like. But
I think it's the one everybody doesn't like, number
no
four.
one likes that one, and it's for a reason. But like
Yeah.
overall, the worst Final Destination movies I think are still fun and a good time, and I like the franchise a lot.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
um I, I don't have a lot of complaints about the movie. I will say, and like I have some things that I think were done very, very well. Um
Hmm.
Overall, it is in like my bottom half of Final Destination movies, which I
Okay.
know is not like I don't think it's my favorite just because, and I think it's really interesting because one bit of praise that I heard for Bloodlines was that it feels the most like a Final Destination movie out of any of the sequels, and I strongly disagree. Like, I think it's a very good movie, and I think it does a really good job of bringing the franchise like more into the current time because we did have that very long break in
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
Five and Bloodlines. I think it did a really great job like blending those audiences together. But
Right.
I think that also made it feel less like a Final Destination movie for me, and it made it a little bit less fun overall, which is not
Mm.
to say that it's
Okay.
not fun, because it still
Right.
is. I had a great time. Um, and I think the things that it does well kind of make up for the fact that it doesn't feel as much Final Destination-y to me. But like when I
Interesting.
think of a Final Destination movie, this is probably not the one that I go for.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. This one's one of my favorites. It's probably in my top half for sure. But but I can see there are a few things there that are in it that were kind of like, okay, interesting choice. And not in a
Yeah.
bad way, just because I
Just
mean,
interesting.
realistically, every one of them has been like that. Like even the ones that are my favorite still are still have interesting choices that they made that I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess. And but I think they do that because they're trying to stay fresh in each installment. They don't want to just redo because they know that this story is easy just to redo over and over and over again and get stale. So I think
Yes.
that's why each installment has done something different and new, specifically in the way the premonitions are, for
Yes.
the main character who's having the premonitions. Um, After that initial premonition, because the initial premonition always seems to be the same mechanism, and then after that, there's always some kind of tweak in it, which is fine. Which is fine. I think that overall, it's interesting to do it that way. And I think
And
this. Go ahead.
oh, that is kind of my core I pro and con of the movie
Yeah.
because it's double-edged. I think it was very, very clever to because we have seen switch ups with like how the premonitions work and kind of the
Hmm.
design and web that comes after in each movie. I think Bloodlines really upped the ante in how it works
Hmm.
because the opening premonition is shared by the granddaughter, which so it's like a rug pull. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was a great way to up the ante after five other movies of like falling
Right.
into that pattern. Um, Consequently, that is the thing that makes it feel the least like a Final Destination movie
Right.
because
Yeah.
it throws off the structure. And I'm going to say throws off. I feel like I'm going to frame this kind of negatively because I didn't personally like it, but I don't
Right.
necessarily mean it as a bad thing because
Right.
the structure needs to be switched up sometimes. But the pro of having like pattern in Final Destination movies is that we have that kind of tight runtime in the other five, and
Yeah.
it's like premonition immediately goes into fight for survival, whereas this one feels like it drags in the first half because it's like 45 minutes before people are like on board and have it figured out what's going on, and the first like death of the group kicks off,
Right. Right.
which is
Yeah.
like it's slower, which it has to be because we're one extra person removed from the premonition, and it, and again, this does the it double-edged sword. This one has more of a family drama element where it's
Yeah.
telling a story outside of the deaths, which is interesting, and it's a good way to add some character to Final Destination. But I kind of like in other Final Destinations movies where like a majority of the people are assholes because it's fun to watch them, like get preyed on by death.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this one felt less fun in that regard for me because it's like I'm kind of rooting for everybody here, and that's
Right.
not
Yeah.
the vibe of Final
Yeah.
Destination for me. I like to root for one, maybe two people in a Final Destination film, and it was sad to lose this group
No,
because
it
they're
really was. Yeah, because it
people,
was definitely a fan. Because yeah, the whole premise of this is that this basically kind of everything that we know about um Final Destination goes back to this moment,
Yeah,
with this woman, the grandmother of the main character, um, having her own initial premonition and saving everybody who was inside this restaurant. Once you factor that in, then you're like, oh, okay, then maybe everybody else that we've seen before was related in some way,
yeah,
to people who were part of this. And so maybe there's something to that. It could be still separate. I don't know. Like they didn't make it very clear, so you can make your own kind of judgments on whether or not that's what they were trying to say. I think they were leaving it very open-ended, so people didn't, for those people who want to headcanon it one way or the other can do that. Um, but I did like that they folded in Bloodworth into it, and we'll get to him in
yes,
a little bit. Um, but I don't know. I really liked the opening sequence is great. The opening, you know, premonition again, very much in keeping with real world fears. Like, I think I said it in the last episode with these movies, there's always like the deaths after the initial
Yeah.
tragedy. All the deaths are crazy weird because they're always much more amped up. But that
Yeah.
first one, the first mass casualty thing, is always something that is very realistic, something that could happen, a bridge collapse, a highway accident, a roller coaster accident, and a plane crash, and everything like that. Just
Yeah.
like all of that stuff is so real that it actually happens. And even this one, I mean, this one's a little probably less realistic, but um, I still think it's in that zone of believable.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so. I think this one's interesting because it's like the most specific, where it's like you're
yeah,
probably not going to die in the opening weekend of an unveiling of, a
right,
revolving
right.
restaurant. But like construction failure still, I think,
Yeah,
taps into that
absolutely.
very human fear in modern society. And I think that felt very real to a lot of
Right.
people.
Well, and I think it's funny too because you talk about how they are like in this in the rest of the movie, we've got this family who's dying and everything like that. So it really flips the script on what we've seen before, where there's a bunch of asshole characters most of the time, and you don't feel bad about. There's one or two that you care for, and then there's like most of them are just kind of people you don't really care for, and you're just like, okay, good, I'm glad they're dead. But this one has all of that kind of in the beginning in this first sequence with the tower falling and everything,
Yeah.
which is a great sequence. It's very vivid and everything, but you do have a couple of asshole characters who die in that, like the maitre d, who's a jerk, and then that stupid ass
That
fucking
kid.
kid. Oh my god, when
Uh,
that piano dropped on his fucking head, I was like, yay. Okay.
it was so funny because it's like, I don't think I've ever rooted so hard for the death of a child character in a horror movie, but the whole theater, like,
Oh, the
woo,
whole
when
theater
that
just
kid
was like,
died.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing brings you together like an asshole kid.
no.
That's so funny. But yeah, it's but outside of that, yeah, definitely the deaths of the family, once it starts targeting the family, like I mean, because obviously, like you find out, she's having these weird dreams about her grandmother and about this incident. So she goes to her family to figure out what's going on, finally gets to see her grandmother, and the grandmother reveals that at the start of when she started getting these visions is when the grandmother found out she's got cancer. So now
Yeah.
death can't mess with her anymore. It's jumping to somebody else in the family line and um trying to figure out. I really think it's interesting too because I think the premonitions are funny because death is messing with them. He gives them
Yeah.
the premonitions to play it out. He wants them to try and get away so that he has more fun killing them in crazy ways. Because he's like, oh, you got away. I'm gonna mess with you now. So I've never taken those premonitions as a good thing. I've always seen them as a bad sign because he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna mess with you, and um, it just, I don't know, it makes it more fun in that way too, but
I
it's just very sadistic.
So
Um,
okay, so when we talked to it's been a while now, but I had the opportunity to talk to Jeffrey Reddick once, the creator of the
yeah.
first Final Destination,
Okay.
and he it, he didn't spell out any theories out loud, like, because he's had PR training.
Yeah, yeah.
So but the impression that I got from talking with him was very much the idea that the premonition is more of like a benevolent force that is acting, and
Interesting.
opposed to death. But I like your read on it, where it's like death is just kind of a jigsaw figure.
But that's my thing. It's like I think that's what we're all supposed to think, is it's this benevolent thing trying to help you figure out a way to do it. But I really think it's death messing with people and just going, well, I'm going to give you teases about what's going to happen so you can kind of avoid it here and there, but eventually I'm going to get you, and it's just going to be more fun for me. I'm just dragging you out along because nearly everybody has died in this series. The only one who has
Yeah.
actually survived is the one woman that they mentioned from the second movie.
Yeah.
So, and she wasn't intended to survive. One of the things that was, I guess they didn't film for the third movie was a news article or something like that where you were supposed to find out that the two people who survived, number two, ended up dying just like um what's his name did in the first movie. Um
Alex.
Alex. So um
That's like that's my Roman Empire is that Alex got killed off via newspaper clipping in
yeah,
Final Destination 2.
yeah.
Brick to the head.
Brick to the
Also,
head.
like
Yeah.
that's rough.
Yeah. So I mean it's interesting. I think it's funny too that like, out of everything, that's the one we find out is like the only person who's ever actually survived all of this.
And
So,
also, like not to harp on this too much, because again, I like Bloodlines. I enjoy it. I think it's well done. It's a good movie.
right.
But it, more credit to
But
it not being super fun. Like I think there's something there's a difference in tone because like when they kill off other people and even people that I like, even Alex, which who I think deserved a cooler death sequence than the
yeah,
newspaper clipping,
absolutely.
or even like Clear, who I liked, she's one of my favorite characters in the franchise, but she has, she doesn't make it either. And
Nope.
but there's still this kind of like it's still kind of like fun, it's still a fun movie theater, like, oh, death got them too, kind of
Right.
a, it's shocking and surprising and, but you're kind of like impressed with it. There's sort of there's sort of a darker tone. I don't know if this is just because like I'm an adult now. I was technically an adult, I think, for I think both 4 and 5, maybe just 5. Um, but it was
Maybe
like,
2009 and 2011 is when those came out.
oh, so neither. I lied. I just straight up lied. Um, but I was like, okay, so I was like late, late teens, right, when 5
Okay.
came out. I like to think that I had some critical thinking skills at that point in time. But like those were all fun for me. And this one had like this very kind of dark air where it didn't feel like death was getting everybody in like a fun way. It felt like death was getting everyone in a, nothing is permanent kind of, it had like a very memento mori kind of vibe to it where it's like even the people that like are successful at the game are just eventually going to die, like there's cancer
Right.
and there's sickness and the human condition cannot be escaped like
Right.
even if you are victorious in the sort of like 3D chess that death is trying to play with you. It felt not as fun. I was like a lot more contemplative coming out of this theater, I think, than I
Interesting. Yeah.
was for the other ones.
Yeah, I can see that. And I like rewatching it because this is the first time I've rewatched it from since the first time I saw it at the theater. I can agree with that. I don't think that like I think there are definitely a few kills that are maybe not playful as some of
Yeah.
the other ones in the series are, but still in their ways are fantastical enough that these I think part of this is that well no I was gonna say part of this is that some of them are still or part of them are more reality based, but they still aren't. They're still very much like things that are not likely going to happen. Um so I mean it's just yeah, I don't know. I think the problem is too there's not a lot of for any of these other than maybe the tattoo parlor. I think most of them are not very Rube Goldberg enough. compared to some of the past ones. Like they're not very complex. There's a few complex bits here and there. I even said it's so funny too because I think I said it in my review that my original review that I said they were complex kills. Lots of great complicated kills. They weren't that complicated. Not compared to some of the other ones where you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
how is this actually going to work? And they have all these different um like setups that you're like, oh, that's what, oh no, that's not what's going to get them, And so this
Yeah.
one didn't really have that one. This one was very straight ahead. And let's go back to all of this because like outside of the dream that this girl is having, her premonitions don't come across like any of the other ones. She doesn't have like visual premonitions, and she's really, I think it's all stuff that she's getting from the book, her
Yeah.
grandmother's book. And so then she's seeing the pieces, but seeing them just as any normal person would, like, okay, watch out for this thing and that thing and this thing, and it just happens to actually go that way. There was never a vision of things happening like that. So I found that an interesting yet also lackluster version of it this time because I mean when number three changed it up, they changed she that changed it up as she had to look at the pictures to figure out the clues to figure out how they were gonna die. And then um I even remember like the other ones, like most of the rest of them were just having regular visions and stuff. Number four's visions were crap. But she wasn't having the visions the same way in this one. So it was like it definitely, I think, took away a little bit. In a way, it's like they didn't want to film all the different like versions of things that could possibly happen. They were going for, and I think that's what undercuts it just a little bit for me, and not like a ton, but just a little bit. And I can see
I,
where you might not be as satisfied with that in that way.
I and I it the premise of this is something that appeals to me uh, as like its own story. There's always that part of me when there's a long enough gap in a franchise that is like, could this have been its own movie? And I
Right.
think it's very interesting because it does feel like, all of the premonitions did kind of work in different ways. We've got like the John Denver songs and the
Yeah.
shadows and the, you know, Omen photos and they all are kind of different enough. This one does feel I do feel like there's a story just kind of at the core of passing down a book of you know
Yeah.
premonition deaths to your granddaughter. Like that almost feels like a different thing. And I think they blended it well enough, but it's and I, as someone who's like susceptible to picking up conspiracy theories from books, I found that I related very well to these kinds of premonitions, but it did feel less Final Destination-y, because
Yeah.
uh, there were this was a thing, this was like a big trend in movies around the same time that the first Final Destination film was coming out, where there was like a big research segment in all mainstream horror movies, where they had to go to the library or log
Right.
online, and like do a bunch of strenuous research about like the ghost or the haunting or killer or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like Final Destination, for the most part, kind of dodged having to do that, because it was like so action heavy. It was like very on your feet, And then it was interesting all these years later to come back and be like, well, now we can read about it. And it's like, oh, well, couldn't and they weren't all immune, like they would have small sections. Alex in particular was one where he was like, I've got to look up the plane seating chart,
Yeah.
but overall they just felt a lot more action heavy, whereas this one felt almost more psychological.
Right. I think it's interesting too because for the most part, I didn't recognize most of the people in this cast, which was also a departure from a lot of them previously, where they would have at least one or two people who were fairly known. Um, And so it was interesting, or at least maybe not super well known at the time. They became well known. So going back and watching stuff like that, like seeing Mary Elizabeth Winstead at number three, she wasn't famous at the time. She became
Yeah.
more famous over time. Um, but it's I don't know. I just this one, and I'm not saying that anybody was a bad actor because I think everybody did a really great job in this.
Yeah.
The main girl is doing fantastic. I thought she was at least this was one of the problems that I had with number four was that number four, the even the main guy who was having the premonitions was not interesting and not engaging enough. I didn't feel any emotional like I wasn't rooting for him. I felt no connection to him in any way. And you don't want that. You want to feel like at least with these movies that at least with the main character you want them to win. Even though you know they're probably not, you still root for them.
Yeah.
Um and I think with this main girl, I think she did a fantastic job with that. And
She
you know,
did.
I mean it helps that it was rooted in trying to save her whole family. Um so and trying to repair like the damage that it had done to their family as well. Which I think was an interesting product of it too, because you know, you get that, you know, that broken family dynamic and how this, you know, curse um affected their lives. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a really I think as much as this one doesn't feel like a traditional Final Destination movie, I think it was a good way to take it in that way. Like I don't expect them to do this again. I don't need them to make it a family dynamic every time, but I think this one did it well enough and it upped the stakes in a way that I think really made it a lot of like made it better for me. When you're coming back after 14 years, I think it was a good choice to do it in this way than just kind of going cookie cutter and doing it the same way as you've been doing it with the cast of people that, you know, you mostly don't like, that are, you know, that they're intending for you not to like.
Yeah, I
So,
fully agree. It's one of those things where it's like a lot of the aspects that I didn't like as much just for fun reasons, I think
mhm,
were really wise studio decisions. Like I think it would have
right,
been really easy for this to be a terrible movie, and they made really smart calls in trying to figure out, you know, how to bridge that gap and what they could show us that was new to the canon of
right,
this. You know, I
yeah.
like it. I like it on paper, I guess is the way to put that. Because
Well,
the execution of it, it's just it's going to be less fun, and it's but I don't think I'd have it any other way, you know.
I don't
Um,
think you could have. I mean, you could have it another way, but I think that again, it would just be that cookie cutter version, which would be sure it would be a crowd pleaser. I'm sure everybody would have loved it if it were very similar to the any of the other ones, and just copied that same format. But I think by going this route, I think it it really upped that emotional resonance, and it was just enough of a difference to make it um worth it. And I think that's why it needed that extra runtime because like I get what you were saying about it kind of dragging a little bit in the beginning, but I think overall because you're rooting for this family and everything and you're really hoping they you know they can figure it out and you know they're not going to that a lot of that that even though it is longer and you have more time with this family and it's a kind of a big family that it plays out well. It doesn't feel like it's long to me. When rewatching it this time, it still didn't feel long.
yeah.
It still fairly zipped along from beat to beat pretty quickly. So for me it didn't feel that bad. So
I I don't think it's that bad. I feel like proportionally it does drag in the beginning some.
right.
I think that was kind of unavoidable. And
Yeah.
I don't even think it drags that much for like a movie, just like in comparison to the other movies, which
Right.
by their nature were faster paced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but no, I think overall they did a really good job with that as well. Um, I mostly have good things to say about it, even though personally it's one of it's I find myself in this situation a lot when I look at like entire franchises where it's like
Right.
critically I can admit that this is like the best one, but personally I love trash. Like it's just that's where we're
Yeah.
at with
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
this one the other thing and we talked about how we were going to bring this up. I think I brought this up even when we were when I was picking things. This one does make me really emotional.
Yeah.
I get like worked up about this one. Um which is also not fun. It's meaningful. Um yeah, and I have like good stories about this movie and my experience grieving with this film in particular, but it's like it does make it less fun on a rewatch. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I saw it in the theater twice and I've seen it at home twice, and this is, like my fifth time watching, and I cried again today
Yeah.
watching it, and it's like, oh man, that's probably always going to happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I mean, this is the final screen appearance of Tony Todd,
Yeah.
who was in the three of the previous, well, technically four of the
Four.
previous five
Yeah.
movies. He was voice only in number three. But he left an indelible mark not only on this franchise, but in horror
Yeah.
as it was. I mean, Candyman and the Hatchet movies and just everything else that he did that in the horror space, he did a lot. And I never met him. I saw him at a couple of conventions, but I never met or talked to him. And he was always so friendly to everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody that I've ever heard online has only had the best things to say about him. He was never like a shitty person to anybody. Um,
No.
and that's what's great. I mean, I love hearing about that. And there's a lot that I can say for the most part, most of the people that I've heard about in the horror space, that are some of the major actors in horror are almost always some of the best people. And it's
Yeah.
always great to hear that there's sure there's always going to be some terrible people in horror, but they seem to be few and far between. So, and especially the people who really love the genre, and really do a lot to exist in it, like Tony Todd did. Choosing those roles because he knew that they were things he liked to do, and he knew people would like to see him in them. So,
Yeah.
and it was sad. It was very sad to see him in this movie because you knew one, he'd already died before the movie came out,
Yeah.
and two, and just seeing him in the state he was in at that point, he was already so gaunt and frail looking that you were just like, oh man, this is heartbreaking. Um, and to find out, like, they gave him extra space to talk in that sequence and stuff like that to kind of give his own goodbye,
Yeah.
which was really nice, which I loved. And I don't know, I thought it was a really great send off for him, knowing that knowing that he was going to be gone soon, that he had that opportunity to do something like that, and give something for the fans. So give something for himself because, just to say that goodbye on his own terms. So it's really
Uh,
good.
I also think that I am in kind of a similar spot. He did interviews with Slasher Radio,
Right.
and I never got to talk to him like a lot one on one, but he was at a lot of conventions that I went to. He was actually he was one of the few. there's maybe like five celebrities I can say this about. He's one of the like few celebrities that I was a fan of before I got into horror. My parents used to take me to go see him at like Star Trek conventions and stuff. And he was always like he helped my dad who got lost at multiple Star Trek conventions when I was a baby. He just but like he was so nice. He's like one of the nicest people that I've ever met and talked to, and I he was such a light in the community. He was such a
Yeah.
talented performer. The news, I remember like when I found out that he had passed, like just that was one of the celebrity deaths that's hit me the hardest. And I'm sure it
Yeah.
is because like I and the thing about it is that like looking back, I don't even feel like I talked to him as much as I've talked to some other like horror celebrities in the community today, but I still felt like he was a friend, you know? Like
Right.
he was so warm to everybody all the time and so easy to get along with, and that one just it really hurt.
Yeah.
But I will say like it was an amazing send off. Finding out that he got to that some of his final speech wasn't scripted, I thought was just very powerful. He did a great job.
Yeah.
It was another great performance. And there has been we actually talked about this as well, like just before we were recording. The theater close to my house closed recently, and it was a long time coming because it was a piece of shit theater. I single-handedly am pretty convinced that I was like keeping that thing afloat because I was going, so many times a week, and it was always empty, like nobody was ever there.
Wow.
But it which is a big, I'm not gonna lie, it's a big part of the reason why I liked going so much because people are loud in theaters these days.
Hmm.
And if you have a theater that's like decrepit and falling apart that people aren't going to, you can go in any time and watch a movie in complete silence, and I love that. Um, but it was like, and even um I remember going to see Final Destination 5, and I had to like drag people to it because nobody wanted to see it, and the theater was kind of empty then too, and then I have this theater, 14 years later it's falling apart and nobody wants to go, and I'm used to seeing stuff completely by myself, and it was one of the best theater experiences that I ever had, was going to see Final Destination Bloodlines, because it was as full as I've seen that theater in
Wow.
years. Everyone was wearing Candyman t-shirts and Hatchet t-shirts, and there was like not a doubt in my mind why everyone had shown up on opening day to
Yeah.
Bloodlines, you know? And it was like I went with my parents, and I know that they wouldn't have gone if it wasn't Tony Todd's last movie, because
Yeah.
neither of them were big Final Destination people, but it was like it was a really powerful moment, and I think the whole theater cried, and like they were giving out tissues after the show and stuff,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was a very sad thing, but it was also really beautiful, that he got to have that kind of send off, and
Yeah.
like just the way that the fans showed up for him for this movie. And it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I wanted to talk about Bloodlines, because I think that was just such a powerful like moment, to see how someone touched the lives of so many people.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I remember just having seen it in the theater. Um I don't I didn't see that many people wearing anything specifically Candyman or anything like that, but I always tend to go on like the Thursday. I try to go on the Thursday when a movie first opens, because I have
Yeah.
found that typically if you go on that Thursday, preview day,
Yeah.
as it were, that you tend to get the more hardcore, more uh well-behaved moviegoers.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you go anytime else on the weekend, you're running the risk of having like terrible people in
Nonsense.
there.
Like
Yeah.
absolute
People who
nonsense.
talk too much or whatever. Like I went to a Sunday showing of um the Kill Bill re-release, The Whole Bloody Affair.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to go see that, and like I don't know, maybe a half hour in, somebody in a few rows ahead of me, and this was a packed theater. The seats were almost completely sold out. Um, some guy several rows ahead of me was like, "Can you guys shut up? You guys been talking the whole time," and they were like, "Oh yeah, sorry." So it's like, yeah, this is the that's what I don't get. Like, stop talking. Like, I get that it's a movie that's been out before, but like, shut up. You're at a movie theater. You should know better.
Yeah, we've got to
Um,
bring back public shaming.
seriously.
I just, oh man.
But yeah, no, you could definitely feel in the crowd for Final Destination that people were just when I watched in the theater originally, like being there, like like I said, I didn't see anybody wearing t-shirts or anything like that, but I also wasn't paying attention. Um, but nobody was talking, everybody was quiet. It was very definitely an emotional scene that you know carried so much weight to it. And it's like, I'm glad it was there. I'm glad he got to have that
Yeah.
send off and got to do something in something if he's not going to be able to make another Candyman movie before that. But he also got to make that Candyman into, be part of the last Candyman movie also.
Yeah.
Um, so it's great that he got to reconnect with the two biggest franchises he was associated with. So before he passed, not everybody gets to do that. So, um, yeah. But yeah, I think it's this is a I think that with so the death sequences, let's get into, get transition from the heavy into some fun. Um, the death sequences in this are interesting and I still think are fun in their own ways. Because we get I think the most Rube Goldberg-esque one is the one where the uncle um in the
Yeah.
backyard. I think that's the most complicated and kind of fun in a way one. It's still terrible because you're just like, I don't
I,
want to see any of these people die. They're all nice, for the most part. They're all really nice. And so you don't want to see anybody in this family die. But yeah, that one's probably the most, quote unquote fun one. Um
uh, I think for
in
me,
terms
it's
of just
the
the complexity. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
I think for me it has to be the wheelchair getting stuck on the X-ray
Yeah, I
machine.
mean that
I
that one's a lot of fun though too, for sure.
What I like about that one is that the sequence of events seems so unlikely. I think
Right.
my again, double-edged sword here. I'm getting right back into it. The thing with the backyard with the lawnmower, I it's a great Final Destination death, but I think as someone who pays way too much attention to this kind of thing, I think it was just edited really well. Like I don't think the sequence of events was that crazy.
True,
And
true.
this might also be like a middle America thing because, every backyard is just a death trap out
Oh
here.
yeah. Yeah.
I that one just seemed like a normal yard to me that was shot really, really well.
As somebody
Um,
who just moved from a rental house to back to apartments, I can agree. The yard
yeah,
is a death trap. I can't tell you
it's
how many
bad.
times I almost like twisted my ankle on rabbit holes in our yard. So
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
And I former trampoline owner as well. Like those things are just not safe.
No, they're not.
It's amazing
Uh,
I made it into adulthood because
oh man, it's just crazy. But I like that sequence because there are a few instances where other things. It's one of those ones that actually has the misdirects, like the the uh the grill that might explode, or you know they might drink the piece of glass, or so there's all
yeah.
these other, like, I like that one sequence because of the misdirects. It's very old school Final Destination. And so I like that they included that, even if they weren't going to really do as much of that in because with the MRI death, that one is very obvious what's going to happen. You
Yeah.
know, they're going to get sucked into it at some point. One or both of them are going to get sucked into it. So it's not very twisty on what exactly is going to happen. So I like that. I do like that because it's just brutal. Um,
Yeah.
and but I think the most
Uh,
comical one in a lot of ways is the garbage truck. So
Oh my God. That is a lot of people get kind of frustrated at the classification of Final Destination about like whether or not it's a horror comedy or not. 'Cause I especially when they were coming out, like growing up in the era of Final Destination, like they were taken, I think, a lot more seriously as they were being released than they're taken in retrospect.
which
But
is
and I
very
would
weird because I saw them as horror comedies from the very beginning. I don't, they're kind of black comedy more than like an out and out haha
yeah.
funny. So
Um,
they're just like that nervous, like, oh, that's not good. Like,
yeah.
but it's like that release of tension too is just like, oh, that's horrible. But
Yeah, they've
yeah,
got those beats though. And I think this one, the garbage truck scene is like a master class in comedic timing for Final
yeah,
Destination. Like that was so good.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And
And
it's
it's also
also super brutal.
Yeah. And it's a
Yeah.
really good way to subvert expectations because we are in this movie where we're getting premonitions and the characters are getting premonitions, and I think it was really interesting to be like you can know more or less what's going to happen and it can still be very hard to save somebody. And the fact that she's like describing these fears in the foreground and we have that garbage truck
Yeah.
picking up the girl in the background. Like it's good. It's very like I liked that one a lot as well.
Yeah.
The
They
music also, the soundtrack for this is incredible. I do miss like in the early Final Destinations, I feel like Death's soundtrack was a little bit more themed. Like it was very highly
Yeah.
curated. Each one was a vibe. But again, the comedic timing of the song choices I think were
Yeah.
impeccable in Bloodlines.
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, definitely great song choices, just fun things. I love the twist of the tattoo parlor. Um
Yes.
because it
Oh,
was interesting too, because that was actually like I think the first trailer that came out for the movie too was just that whole
yeah.
sequence. Which was odd. Like not the whole sequence, but like a good portion of that
Bunch
sequence. And
of it.
you're like, okay, well, you just showed us a whole sequence. That sucks. Because I don't like that. Like, I like watching trailers.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who shies away from that. And I totally understand people who do.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those ones that's gonna watch the trailers, but I don't watch the early clips, like the first 10 minutes or the first 5 minutes of a thing, or the 2 minutes, 2 random minutes from part of the movie. I don't want to watch that. Like, I want the collection of clips that make no sense until you after you've watched it. And then you go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that part's from the very end, which I know is always a problem for some people because they're like, the trailer showed the end of the movie. Well, you didn't know that until you watched the movie, so shut up. Um, so, um, but but yeah, I like that because that one was like a lot of fun because that one had a lot of that complicated um stuff going on as well, lots of moving parts, and then to have him survive it was very interesting. And then the reason for him surviving it was hilarious too. So
Um, those sequences that sequence in particular, first of all, really does play into your idea that Death is a sadist, I think.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like that
He's just
that one
messing with this
just
guy. He's not
he's
even on
just
the
like
list. He's just messing with him.
torturing this dude for no goddamn reason. Which is very funny on the rewatch, I will say, where you're like, oh,
Well,
wait a minute.
yeah,
Um,
and then it's really torturing her because she still believes that he's the next in line. And so it's
yeah,
setting up all this stuff to mess with her so that she's focused on him so that it ends up getting the sister completely like
Yeah.
like without any interference. So,
Also, that sequence, as someone who spends, because it's really easy to think about yourself in a Final Destination situation and be like, well, this wouldn't happen to me because of this, whatever.
right.
That one really made me squirm because it's like, I fully am the kind of person who would just like I spend a lot of time in tattoo and piercing parlors and sometimes at like stupid hours of the night. Like this could absolutely happen to me. And I would hate it if something got attached to any of my piercings. Like that one just stressed me out. I didn't like watching it.
Oh, and then the like not just that, but then later on when the MRI is just pulling out all of his piercings, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, like I only have my ears pierced. Like thankfully that's all I got pierced. But like all of that other stuff, you're just like, oh, ow, ooh, ow. You could just feel it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no, no, thank you.
No. And then, you start to think about where you are pierced and it's like, oh God. Like, yikes.
Yeah,
Um,
no, thank you.
yeah, that one got me. And also, not for nothing, I think it's so fun because I think of myself as not a squeamish person. But the stuff that gets me is always like so dumb. I think the grossest shot from any of the Final Destination movies comes from the super close up of the tattoo gun where like the ink is spreading.
Mm.
That's like one of my that's the grossest thing I've probably ever watched in person also is when I got my first tattoo, and you're like looking over and my first one it's like on my shoulder. So I was like watching at the distance of my own shoulder, and you see those little specks of ink and I think that that's maybe as queasy as I've ever gotten in a Final Destination film. Watching that and it's like, oh no.
Well, I
That's
think
not
that's
good to
what's
look at.
yeah, I think that's funny too because I think that's because it's so real. And it's the
Yeah.
same for me. It's like anytime there's actual real like blood and gore, like in real life blood and gore, I can't look at it. It's disgusting. I can watch the most horrendous stuff in a horror movie, but because I know it's fake, I have that mental separation that allows me to do that. But as soon as I
Yeah.
see anything realistic, like actual real stuff, I'm like, oh no, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's just any of that. Um,
In the
and
same way, and
yeah,
it had
yeah,
been kind of a long time since something had like gotten me like that, but
yeah.
it's like, oh, I know that pain. This one's gross. I don't like this
Yeah,
one.
right. Well, that makes it even worse. Well, it's like when later on in the movie when the brother uh gets his finger cut by that knife.
Oh,
That
yeah.
one's also one of those really squeamish ones where I'm like, "Oh God, that could actually happen." Like, like I mean, all of this stuff could actually happen, but like there's still this separation that you can deal with, but like that knife going into his finger was just like, "Oh, that's too much. That's too much." So, um, but yeah, I think all of the deaths are interesting, like and very, very brutal. Like I think this is one of the more like they're all always brutal. But like I don't know, it just seemed like they really upped it. This movie, like I don't know, maybe it was just because it had been so long since we experienced a new one.
Yeah.
That I don't know, they just felt like extra mean. So and I think, part of that could have just been because Death was really after this fucking family. He's like, you have escaped me for so long. I am coming after you with everything now. Um, and like that just goes into the very end too. I'm gonna skip right over everything. We're just gonna go jump it right into the end.
Yeah.
They think they've beaten Death. She supposedly died. The brother brought her back to life and then they've moved on. Everything's nice and again, this is why I think Death is controlling all of this because he does this to everybody. There's a period of time where people get complacent again and are just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is all great. Things are going well. And then boom, out of nowhere, he gets them because they let down their guard. And so I love that about it and I think that it's really like that is part of that whole thing is just Death is messing with them. I don't think the premonitions are benevolent in any way, shape, or form. Um, But yeah, I just think it's funny that we get the same train tracks that were at the very beginning of the movie, and then this train comes barreling at them. They manage to survive all the train cars, uh, narrowly missing them, and then they get taken up by fucking logs. Um, it was hilarious. I loved it
That
because I was
also
just like,
nice little nod to the
yeah, because it was actually like multiple times they kept teasing logs. There was a log truck that almost hit them at one point, and there was some other stuff. And it was just like, this is so funny that they keep referencing this because, as I mentioned in an earlier podcast, this is one of those existential fears that was caused by Final Destination. Like,
yeah.
I can tell you almost nobody cared about log trucks before that. Now,
No.
everybody, you watch everybody when you're driving, anytime there's a log truck, everybody moves over. Nobody
It,
wants to be behind the log truck. It's
it
hilarious.
was a really interesting thing growing up because as a child that was watching a lot of horror movies that I shouldn't have been watching as a child.
Right.
Uh, there was always that part of me that's like, and also as a kid, I had no filter whatsoever. So whenever I saw something that reminded me of a horror movie, I'd be like very comfortable speaking up, and it made everybody super uncomfortable around me all the time. I was just like constantly traumatizing adults that had to take care of me. But it was really interesting because I was kind of an age where I was learning that I maybe shouldn't do that. And then Final Destination 2 came out, and suddenly everybody's talking about log trucks, and it's like, oh, so it's okay when everybody else does it. But like, yeah, seeing the birth of fear of log trucks. And it was also, I think I might have told you this like on one of our other episodes, or maybe in between episodes at some point. This one just feels so ubiquitous. Like my partner who it watches horror movies now mostly because I like sit him down and put on horror movies. I like one of the first times he ever drove me anywhere, like got out of the way of a log truck, and it was like, that's so interesting. Like, why would you do that? And he's like, oh, because of Final Destination 2. It's like,
hmm
it's
hmm
so specific. Um,
I
and
think it's
like,
one of those things that has hit the cultural like lexicon in a way that even people who have never seen that movie know
yeah,
instinctively that it comes from that movie and
they
still
just
will move
know.
over. They just know. It's just one of those things like even if you it's like Darth Vader and like Star Wars. People know that stuff through cultural osmosis. You know, it's just
Yeah,
things that have just like permeated in such a way that and I love that. I love that. There's a lot of things that do that, but there's like it's weird when it's so like very specific like that. So it cracks me up. But yeah,
there was also
go
a
ahead.
phenomena for a while after the movie came out where people um like log truck drivers were having cases thrown out in court because they couldn't get like unbiased jurors and stuff. And it's like that just the impact of this one really is just crazy. I think about
Yeah,
that a lot.
so funny. And I love that they ended up using it in a similar way in this one, just to like take
Yeah.
them out. And it was just like it was just hilarious. I just feel bad for that their dad and the mom of the other ones who like they're
Yeah.
the lone survivors of this family who are cursed and just like watch everybody else die around them. And it's just like and they got to live. Like so it's just it's crazy. So but yeah, I don't know. It's just I found this one to be really fun. Even on this second watch, I had a lot of fun with it. Um I liked what they did with it. It's very high up there for me. Um it's when I think about them, this is like I said, very high up there just because it did some new things, did some different stuff. I love that they folded in the rest of the lore that had gone along with it,
Yeah.
including the references to the only two ways that people have figured out how to survive it is either to die themselves and be resuscitated or to kill somebody and get their time, which
Yeah.
was the mechanism in number five. So I was just like, that's awesome. I love that they they are keeping the lore in that way and not just dismissing any of it. They're just like, hey, this has worked in these other ones. We're just going to keep it going. Um, and I don't know, it made it a lot of fun for that way. And it's a very consistent overall series. I think that,
Yeah.
again, like we said, even with number four being not so great, the series overall is really good. And even with number four being not so great, it's still better than a lot of horror sequels.
Yeah.
At least in terms of consistency and tone and everything like that, that it just, you watch any other horror franchise, there's almost no consistency and no like um there's almost really terrible ones in there that you can just point to, like Hellraiser and Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. There's always terrible ones in there. um
It's really
I don't.
funny to hear someone make this argument because this is always like verbatim the thing that I say about Saw when people get on my case because Saw's my
Yeah.
favorite franchise. And it's but I think Saw and I think Final Destination, I think 2000s movies were starting to get more aware of some of the like stigma around horror
Right.
sequels. A lot of them I think Saw and Final Destination are probably the two most successful in this regard.
Right.
Um but I feel like there were a lot of them that, especially in like the early installations, were trying harder not to fall down that like 80s sequel rabbit
Hmm.
hole that and it shows because we do have, and again, four, you know, wasn't so good, but there is like a quality control in Final
Right.
Destination that is not always there for
Right.
long-running horror
I think
sequels.
again, I think four the most frustrating thing with four, and I think I mentioned it in the episode, was just that the CGI was really bad. And that they relied so heavily on that it really um and just the characters were bland and not as interesting. You didn't really connect with them all. Or
Yeah.
not, connect with some of them, and then they had the caricature, inbred Nazi guy and stuff like that. It was like so many weird things that they chose. It's like, but even still, there's little bits in there that are really good. And so you're just like, okay, I can kind of, go away from that. And if you decided to skip that one, it kind of does pull out okay. You
Uh,
don't have to watch that
yeah.
one. So, whereas you can't say that with some of the other franchises where they have terrible ones. I mean, most of the time you can. But like I would argue, there's two other series that I think Saw is definitely one of those ones that, and for what's crazy with Saw is the consistency with those. I mean, you can argue, if you like the storylines or not. That's not, because I know people do, but I think the
Yeah.
internal consistency of them all is very good, especially for a franchise that was year after year after year, and
Yeah.
they were making it up as they went along. They had no
Yeah.
overarching plan to begin with. They were just like, oh, this first one did well. Let's build on that. Um, and they did, and it was great. And they fumbled it like by killing, you know, Jigsaw early.
Yeah.
But they found a way to bring him back all the time, so it made it work. Um, but I also argue that the Chucky franchise is pretty consistent. Say what you want to say about some of the installments in it. Overall, it's a fairly consistent, and it helps that the writer was the same writer through all of them.
I was
So,
gonna say I would argue some about the quality control of
yeah,
Chucky,
but
but
I think that's
as a
more of a
story,
studio
you
thing.
do
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
And I will also
Um,
say I have seen people like really defend the worst Child's Play entries in a way that makes me feel like I'm going crazy. And you don't get that
I
as
think they're
you get
all
that a little
okay.
bit with like because there are always those contrarians, right, who will come out
Right.
and be like, I love Jason Goes to Hell, and you're like, yeah, sure you do, bud. Um,
The
sure,
Jason Goes to Hell fans, I will
whatever you
never
say.
understand.
But like
I love you guys. I know some of you listen, but I don't understand it.
But I do have like
It's a
personal
terrible
friends
movie.
who are like, I find emotional support in this horrible child's play movie. And I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I trust
Oh,
your opinion usually, so that's interesting.
yeah. Listen, I love some trash. We all love some
We
trash
all
movies.
do love some
I
trash.
love
It,
Sleepwalkers. That is a trash ass movie. I love Maximum Overdrive. That is a
oh,
really trash movie.
Maximum Overdrive is so good.
It's so good though.
I
Thank
love,
you.
yeah,
I like the two of the like trashiest ones and trashiest in a different way than just bad. Like there are some
yeah.
bad Stephen King adaptations that just god awful dumb, like Lawnmower Man and like The Mangler and shit like that. Those ones are just bad.
Bad.
But Sleepwalkers and Maximum Overdrive are entertaining. They might be trash, but they're entertaining trash. And so that's why I love them.
That's the
But
thing
I
that I like get I will butt heads with people sometimes because it's like I can totally acknowledge that you are correct in your opinion that the movie is bad,
yes,
but like I
yes,
would rather watch a bad movie that I'm laughing through than like an okay movie that does
yeah, and
nothing.
not one that you're laughing at, because there are definitely movies that you can laugh at,
Yeah.
but like I don't laugh at Overdrive or Sleepwalkers. I enjoy those; they are fun for me.
Yeah, I'm having a fun
Um,
time.
yeah. I will say the other franchise, and this is my favorite horror franchise, is Evil Dead. I think there's a consistency in those, even though they are wildly like inconsistent in tones and subject matter at times. I think that overall there is a like a mythology and lore in those that is consistent and is continuing to build, that I find very fun. And that's why it's my favorite franchise. So,
Well,
but yeah.
that one, Evil Dead, I think suffers as a franchise from at like a numbers game perspective because hypothetically, if there were one Evil Dead movie that you really hated and there were one Evil Dead movie that you think is fun, but maybe not the best in terms of consistency,
Hmm.
that's like two strikes out of five movies, which is kind of a rough ratio.
Yeah,
Like,
true. I mean,
oh,
it definitely does not have the numbers that other franchises do. So,
right, which I think is one of the things because it, in my opinion, like Saw took I there's one Saw movie that I also don't like, but it took nine to get there, right? Like that's
why does
pretty good.
everybody
And
hate
up
Spiral?
until
I like
I
Spiral.
hate it so it's my least favorite movie of all time.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
I hate
Like,
that movie. But like it beat the law of averages as a franchise for a long time, you know? And like if you're
there's
one
a
of
lot of
the
people that don't like Jigsaw though, too. So I know
if
that like there's a lot of
a
people
lot of
don't.
people did not like
Yeah.
Jigsaw. I didn't
But
have a problem with Jigsaw,
I
but
honestly like a good portion of the Saw franchise. Like for again, consistency and tone are fairly great throughout. And I like the departure that Spiral did with it, taking it in a different direction, having somebody else play with it. But I can understand why people don't like it.
yeah.
And I'm not going to shit on people for not liking it because, of whatever, their reason for it is. I just like it. It's one of those movies that
Yeah.
I like that most other people don't. So,
I think it's like but like it took a while to get there, which is why that was my
yeah,
case for so long. Whereas like if you have a smaller franchise, it's easier to have stronger entries, but it does really only take one to screw it up. And I think with Final Destination, because now we have six of them, where
right.
it's like one bad movie out of six is not a bad ratio. But I will say there was a time in being a Final Destination fan where I was like, a fourth of these movies are shit.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah,
because it brought down the whole quality of the franchise. So it's something that Scream is another really good one. Like, because
yeah. Oh, yes. Scream is one of the best. Yeah.
I had always really thought of Scream as being like one of the strongest franchises ever. And then like I was sitting down and doing the math, and it's like I don't know if I stand by this opinion
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Like as a
Interesting.
franchise, it just has like very strong single entries, perhaps.
Yeah, I can see that. I think overall it's still a very good franchise, even for all six of them. I think that they all it's for me, it's one of those franchises that I think is more consistent than not, and that even for the ones that I think are lesser, which sometimes are the ones that other people think are greater,
Yeah.
and the one that I think is really, really, really good that everybody else hates. So, um, which is of course Scream 3. So, because
Oh, okay. Hang on.
I I
Let
love Scream 3.
Yeah, I like Scream 3.
Okay.
I didn't the first time I saw it,
Oh my
but
God.
it's
I've been a
really
fan of
grown
that ever
on
since it
me.
came out. Yeah.
Like it nothing like Scream 4 to make me look back at Scream 3 and be like, "Man, we had it good. We had it really
So
good."
you're saying you didn't like Scream 4?
I didn't like Scream 4.
Thank you. I don't either. Like,
I
I think it's, again, I
I
think
don't
it's
like it.
fine. I think it's a good movie. I don't like it overall, like, especially in terms of the franchise. It's probably my lowest, which is crazy because I know everybody else is like, oh my God, Scream 4 is one of the best. I'm
No,
like,
Scream 4 is
nah.
like right at the bottom for me.
Yeah, same, same. Like I need now you're making me have to go look this up because I'm pretty sure it's at the bottom for me too. And again, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just bottom of the Scream franchise for me.
Right.
So I think it's overall it's still a decent movie and a good watch. So whenever I'm watching them all, um, I do watch it. I'm just not as entertained by it. Um,
I will say you can tell how angry I am at a movie if like I skip a sequel when I'm watching the movies over because I very seldom do that. There's like just a handful ever that it's like I
All right.
can't do
I know
this to
we've
myself
gone
again.
wildly off topic, but
Oh, yeah, I know.
here's my
Oh,
Scream ranking.
yeah.
Scream 1 is number 1, of course.
Okay.
That's the big dog of them all. It's the one that started it all. It's great.
Yeah.
Then Scream 3 is my number 2
Mm.
because I love that one. It's not that it's even tonally consistent with everything. It's a wild departure from the other ones. I just think I never have liked number 2. Number 2 had been consistently at the bottom of my ranking for a long time just because it felt too much of a copycat of the first one. There's a lot of the same things happening in that one. And so I just was like, I don't this it doesn't hit for me. So number 3 was like, oh, this is fun. You got Parker Posey, you got comedy in this, like a lot more comedy in it, and it just worked for me on a level that I don't know, it just I don't know why. But then Scream 5 at number 3 and Scream 6 at number 4. And then Scream 2 and Scream 4. Um, I know that's sacrilege. I might bump Scream 6 down. I don't know.
I
Um, but Scream 6 is basically the new version of Scream 2 for me in a lot of ways. It's a redo of Scream 2 as much as Scream 5 is one of Scream 1. They like they're very much copycats of the first two. So um I was hoping Scream 7 would continue that and be like a weird little copycat of Scream 3 and just be like a little nod to that and them going to Hollywood and everything else. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Scream 7.
yeah.
Not super hopeful. So, but
Um to refocus, what can I ask what your Final
yes.
Destination rankings are
Oh, you know
as
what? I
well
don't know if I
while we're
have
here?
a Final Destination ranking yet. But I will say let me go with number 1 first.
Mhm.
Because that I think is it's the one that started it all. It's hard. Like I don't always do that. I don't always go with number 1 being the first one in a franchise because I don't think like with Friday the 13th, number 1 is not my favorite. Um,
Yeah.
because it doesn't even have Jason in it. Come on. Um, but
Fair.
this one, Final Destination, kind of sets it all off. So it's kind of hard to not have that as your number 1. Um, I'm gonna go wildly crazy, and I'm gonna say Bloodlines at number 2.
Okay.
Um, just because it was so fun and a different departure from everything else. Then I'm gonna go with number 5. Um, because number 5 has probably my favorite kill in the franchise.
Oh,
And
which
I
one?
talked the gymnastics
The
kill.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the crowd favorite from that movie, but it's probably my favorite of the whole franchise. And it's just that one's fun, and because it's like a sneaky prequel, that it just it was fun in that way too, like figuring it out. Like because like I mentioned this on the last episode, like while watching that one, I was like, there's something up with this one. There's something going on because I noticed everybody was using flip phones, and when this movie came out,
Yeah.
it was 2011, and I was like, nobody's using flip phones anymore. What's going on? So it was just I was like, I caught on quick. I
I
didn't know
tried
what it
really
exactly
hard.
was.
It's like my role sometimes to kind of try and run defense, I feel like, for movies when my partner watches them. And I
Mm,
was like, I'll just take up like ridiculous things that no we watched this for the first time this year, I think was his first time
mm.
seeing Final Destination 5, and we were watching and he's like, "Is that a flip phone?" And I was like, "This came out 14 years ago." Like, and then he was like, I was gaslighting him. I was like, "I had a flip phone 14 years ago." And he's like,
I
"Oh,
mean,
okay."
I'm not
Um,
saying there weren't, because even in 2011, people were still using flip phones. Not
I
everybody had
know,
switched to
but
smartphones. So, I mean, it was that's why I was like, wait, is
I
this
know I
accurate? But since everybody was using flip phones in the movie, I was like, that's not right. That's not
I
right,
tried
especially
so
for
hard to like run
salespeople.
defense and
Yeah,
stuff. And then, and then the reveal came and he's like, I knew it. It's like,
that's
yeah.
hilarious. Yeah. And then I'd go 2, 3, 4. I think after that.
Oh,
I
okay.
think, yeah. So 1, 6, 5, 2, 3, 4. What's yours?
Uh, different. It's very different. Mine is two. Two is my favorite one.
Two is a lot of
Um,
fun. Yeah.
it's so much fun. It has everything that I love. It has that like paranoia that I really look to Final Destination for, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I liked the butterfly effect implications of it. That was just fun. And then
Yeah.
one has a
Yeah.
special place in my heart. It kicks everything off. Felt very paranoid, set the tone. Loved it. I also
Right.
loved Clear. So,
Yeah.
biased a little bit there. Three is next.
Okay.
For me, I have some issues with three because it did feel at the time it felt the most tonally different with the way
Yeah.
the deaths work and everything, but it's just so much fun. I it hit that balance really well for me of having characters that you don't really like that well, uh but it's kind of fun to watch them get picked off. And then
Right.
but you still have somebody to root for, like it did that really well. It hit that
Yeah.
um like slasher zone really well. And then five, I think was maybe not written quite as well overall, but that rug
Right.
pull at the end, so
Oh,
exceptional. The
yeah.
deaths are just brutal. That has a
Yeah.
bunch of my favorite deaths in it. Um,
Yeah. The laser eye
the
one.
laser eye,
Oh, oh, it's so
um,
bad.
the
Those
acupuncture.
yeah, that one's
uh,
funny.
and then Bloodlines, which
Okay.
I can acknowledge critically is like a great movie, but it's
Right.
less fun for me.
Right.
Like it's the one that I'm probably going to rewatch least, except for four. Four is
Right.
not so good.
Yeah.
But two, because I've thrown some shade at four. I will say favorite credits, like not for nothing, very cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I will admit those are interesting. Yeah.
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 I think that they should have like the Final Destination re-release where we got the death credits for every movie. Like if that were a box set,
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
be
there
into
you
it.
go. I will say though that I think that having a woman as the premonition person
Yeah.
works for me a lot better than having a guy. I've noticed that with the ones with 2, 3, and 6, when it's a woman who's getting the premonitions, there is a much better, for me, I connected better with that in a
Yeah.
way than I did with any of the guys, even Alex. As much
Yeah.
as I like Alex as a character, I think that all of the women just were so much stronger in maybe in their emotional depth, that they were able to pull
Yeah.
into. I just I don't know. It just worked.
Can
Each one of those
I
worked a lot better for me.
fully agree with you on that. Can I be just like a tiny bit sexist on the show?
Sure, absolutely.
Um, I fully, I fully believe, and I loved Alex also.
Yeah.
Great character. I really rooted for him. Really felt for him. Justice for Alex in the Brick situation.
Yeah.
But 100%, I fully believe that if a man had a premonition like that, he just wouldn't say anything and the movie would be over in the same amount of time as the premonition sequence. Like, men are so in denial about anything, even remotely possibly being wrong all the time. I've never known a man and this goes for family members and my current partner and former partners, and I just all of them would deny it.
Yeah.
Like they would get me 100% killed because they just wouldn't say anything. They'd be like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, that's probably nothing." Like
I think
it's more realistic when a woman is having the premonitions because I think that women would do something about it.
I think at least with Alex's case, I think that I would tend to believe his, at least in the beginning, because it was his best friend that was the first one to die.
Yeah,
And then after that, because of that death, and he wasn't able to stop it, that's what made him focus in on it more.
yeah,
I think up until that point, yeah, he was just sitting there. Remember? I mean, that was the thing. He was just wallowing in it.
yeah,
Um, and then like not doing anything until he did get the premonition and was like, okay, I gotta go figure this out, what's going on with my friend. And then once he died, then he was like, oh, I really gotta pay attention to this. So I'll give him that credit there. But it was because of his friend. So
and he's like a little
um
bit younger and more impressionable, but
yeah.
I don't know the dude from Four. I don't believe that he would help.
Mm, not I don't think everybody else know for sure. So yeah, yeah. And the dude from Five, yeah, I would think so because most of the people in there he was fairly close to, so and he knew fairly well. So I can see that, like, because he was at least friendly with most of them. Um, but yeah, I would agree with you just in general. But I think that's why these generally work okay, is
Yeah,
that because there's enough people who are like in those instances, like with the guys, at least with 1 and 5, they were connected to at least one, if not more people in that spurred them into that. 4, not so much because 4, the only person he was connected to was his girlfriend. And she wasn't slated to die early on the list, so why would he even really care?
right.
And so but yeah, the women in each one of these, one, I mean 6, I mean makes sense because it was her family. Um and 2, I mean 2 is all her friends die anyway. They died in the
Yeah.
crash no matter what. So she was completely unconnected to anybody. And then 3 3 I can see it too because she her boyfriend died and everything. But yeah, we're just deconstructing the whole series now.
I
Um but that's good. It's the last episode of this series for me.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I don't disagree with you. I think that, by and large, yeah, guys are tend to be like, less less emotionally invested in something like that. Like
I think so.
and I just think I don't even think it's like I don't think it's all guys, but definitely most guys.
Most
Because I
guys.
wouldn't say that even me that I would necessarily focus in on that. I'd like to think I would, but I can't say that I would. I mean, I don't know. But but I agree with you. I think in general, yeah. But I mean, but that goes into the heart of what I was saying about like all of the female main characters. They were the more compelling. Even if I put 2 and 3 down at the bottom, towards the bottom of my list, that doesn't negate their again, because I think all of these movies are solid except for 4. 4 is still entertaining in its own ways. It's still a good, solid franchise. And that, but I think that, yeah, the women really have
They've got the
The
edge
they
there,
they do
I
have the edge
think.
in terms of the bigger the better character development in it too. So
It's
they carry the emotional weight better.
it's a more believable premise for me. I do think they tend to have the better scripts. I also not for nothing, I do think Iris has like the only correct opinion on being chased by death because Alex lived in like got went crazy and lived in a hut for a while.
Hmm.
Um
And clear in the
which is the correct
insane asylum.
mood,
Yeah.
right? Like when you find out that death is chasing you. And then he got lax and then he got hit on the head with a brick. And
Yep.
Iris committed. She locked in. She's like,
She
"No, this
committed.
is my
Yeah.
life now."
20
Um
plus years in the same house, never leaving it. I mean, that's
yeah.
bold. So
I think that is what would happen to me if I had this kind of near-death experience. I could fully see
yeah.
myself becoming like a weird harbinger hermit. Um, cause yeah, like the second you give up, you know?
Hmm. Well, and I mean, I mean, that's why Death was just like, okay, cancer then. He's like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
be able to get you with all the like my normal like crazy stuff, so I'm just going to get you the other way that I know will get you no matter what. So, you'll only escape me for so long. So, and I think that's ultimately what was happening with Bloodworth as well in the movie too, is just like
Yeah.
they utilized his actual sickness as a plot point in the movie as well. So, um, which was, heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah.
So, but all that said, again, I think it's a fun movie, definitely worth a watch. Like I said, it's high up there for me. Um, and like I'm gonna say that my ranking isn't firm. Um,
Yeah.
any of them could switch at any time, so except for number four being at the bottom. Um,
That one's pretty set in stone.
yeah, that one's very, very set in stone. Unless they do something terrible after this that's like worse than number four, which I can't see them doing. Um,
Um, it- Part of me kind of hopes that seven is bad. I and it feels mean to say because I love this franchise and obviously it would be great if I got fantastic Final Destination movies forever. But I do think it's very funny that the one bad Final Destination movie is the one that Tony Todd like had nothing to do with.
had nothing to
And I
do
think
with
it
and
would
was
be
called
very
The Final
funny
Destination. Yeah.
if just like out of the blue, seven is like Final Destination, final chapter, and then it's like
Uh,
bad. It's just bad all the way. Like that would be very funny.
See, I think
Um,
that's the problem is that when you try to call something the final
I
or
know
the end or something like that, it always inevitably isn't. Now, I'll admit, Friday the 13th 4, the final chapter,
the final
is still
chapter.
pretty decent, in terms of the
Well,
franchise. It's not bad. It's not, number six is my favorite of the Friday the 13th franchise. So
six is great. I was gonna
six
say
is,
six is also my favorite, but Jason X is my favorite because again,
oh,
I love
see, you
trash.
like
I'm
one
a
of the
trash
terrible ones.
person.
Yeah.
Uh,
No.
but I do think six is like the best one.
Six is arguably the best one because I think it's the one that is the one that introduces zombie Jason, and I think it turns into what everybody is most familiar with Jason.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's just, the comedy in that is like on target. It's just like, I don't know, it's just a really great movie. So lots of fun for sure. So um all right. Well, that's all I have to say about this movie. Do you have anything else that you want to say that we didn't mention?
No, just reiterating one final time. I do really like Final Destination Bloodlines. This is one of those movies that one of those franchises where it's like I recommend them all pretty much. Um, and it's a very solid movie. I'm glad that I got to come talk about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always good to have you on. It was a lot of fun wrapping up this series with you. Um, we ended up talking a lot more than I thought we would too, so that
Yeah.
was pretty good. A few tangents as usual.
Yeah, always.
So,
I can't help it. I've got questions.
oh, me neither. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
You can find my website, catvalor.com. I've got books for sale, and you can find me across social media at catvalor, CATVOLEUR.
All right. Yeah, go follow her on Instagram and wherever else, and go check out her books. I'm a big fan. Although admittedly, I haven't read any in a while. But I like the ones that I've read, which Revenge Arc and My Apologies, Tongue Carries are both up there. So really good stuff. So
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on, and we'll get you on again here soon, sometime in the new year. I already told you about all my plans, so
Yes.
I know you're interested in some of what I've got going on. So I'm sure we will be seeing you sooner rather than later. But
Hopefully.
until next time, stay creepy. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.